woman who accused 14-year-old Emmett Till of whistling at her and making sexual advances has died. Those claims made by Carolyn Bryant Dunham led to Till's kidnapping and gruesome murder in 1955. The coroner's office in Louisiana says she died in hospice care Tuesday night after suffering from cancer. She was 88 years old. Till's kidnapper and murderer became, well, his murder and the kidnapping became a catalyst, as you know, for the civil rights movement when his mother, Mamie Till Mobley, insisted on an open casket funeral after his brutalized body was pulled from that river in Mississippi. Dunham had long insisted that she bore no responsibility for Till.
If you could see what I see, our community and you.
Hi everyone,
no frustration from brutality with our black nation, a reality.
This is my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, is my perspective.
We always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave.
All right, y'all. Welcome to the Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. We've been having some technical difficulties, some problems with our
we always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all.
And welcome everybody to the Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. We've been having a couple of technical difficulties so far in the show. Much apologies for the rough start of this show, but we are here, we're live on air. Try to start the show off with a clip, because I know most people have heard that Carolyn Bryant, the individual who set up Emmett Till, the young teenager who was brutally murdered down in Mississippi, which was really one of the catalysts for the civil rights movement. But she has died at 88, lost a bout with cancer. She died in hospice care at 88 years old. So I'm just wondering, how should we feel about that? How do we feel about, this lady who is the reason for one of our young babies being brutally murdered? As we know, that there was an arrest warrant for her that sat in the basement of a Mississippi court house for over 50 years. It never was issued to her, and there was a recent campaign to get that served and to bring her to justice, and the courts basically refused. Now she has died at 88 years old. So how should we think about that? I'm gonna open that up. How do we feel about that? And we're gonna be talking about other things. You know, I put the show because we had a lively discussion on the black church earlier, and we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. But I wanted to start out by talking about Carolyn Bryant and her passing. And so how do y'all feel? I'm gonna open that up to my brothers in the struggle. So anybody who wanna address that, feel free.
Comment on that. Okay, I'm going to say.
Got to unmute him.
How do we think?
Got to unmute him.
How do we think that we're going to get justice in America? It's not unusual. This is something, I mean, it's only just been recent that we've had even one person, African man or woman that have been, that a white man has been convicted, a white person has been convicted. It's only been recent. So it's not surprising that they are going, and particularly when they deal with white women, that they're going to allow, they're going to continue to do the things that they have always done. So, even in the situation here in Tennessee, where you had two black men, in so-called state house, that protested with a white woman. The white woman did not get kicked out, they got kicked out. So there's no justice in America. It's just us who are in oppressed, who are being brutalized, cannibalized in all kinds of ways, and it still continues. Even just the other day, they did not convict the police that had shot this guy for 45 times, because they said he had fired at them. These are the kind of things that we have to begin to understand that, that no matter how long a process takes, it's still going to remain the same. Emmett Till's mother was in Memphis several times, advocating for justice for him before she died, and did a lot of work in terms of looking at the whole build-up of trying to get people to understand the significance of her son being killed, even to the end. And there was no justice in, her, before she died, and there's no justice after her death. So we have to begin to understand that this system is not, and we're talking about, we're talking about the South, the so-called Confederate South, and we're talking about Mississippi, and we're talking about, and here we are in Memphis, which could be a part of Mississippi. We look at the things that happen here. We should not expect that we're going to get justice in America. That's why we are saying that it's only when we begin to govern ourselves that we'll be able to take care of the justice for ourselves. Once we're able to govern ourselves, we'll be able to get the true justice that we're going to desire, because we're going to be in position to demand it or to make it happen. And it's unfortunate that this woman died or whatever, but she was acting on behest of her a race of people that, during that time. In other words, because there were a number of people who died in Mississippi that have not, that nothing has turned up for justice for all those people that were being lynched and killed in Mississippi under the so-called civil rights movement. They're just trying to get the right to vote. And Mississippi is the place where the so-called 3 civil rights, persons were, one black guy who was really not a civil rights. He was one that was guiding them down in Mississippi, and they were lynched, they were killed, and one of them happened to be a Jew. So they got the intention, throughout the world on Mississippi in terms of what would happen if you're talking about trying to guide black folks into just merely voting in Mississippi. So we got to begin to look at that and understand and look at the real true history of all of that, and think about all the others that graves have not been uncovered, in the state of Mississippi.
Now,
and it's I'd like to go on not a different tangent, but I would like to go and speak more towards understanding how a lot of times what needs to be done is outside of the box and could feel uncomfortable. But as men, we have to begin to recognize some of the things that other men do for their community, and don't, and irregardless of what people think. You know, and look at these white people for their community. They don't care who it is, a 13-year-old kid or a 25-year-old kid whistling at their women. They stood up like men and beat this boy to a pulp. I'm not saying that's right, and I know it's not right because it's one of my kids. But when are we gonna start doing things for our people and stand up in a position that we are protecting and serving our community in the way that other men protect and serve their community? Because number one, we got to stop believing that when we do something in terms of doing what's right by our community, we got to stick by some type of guidelines that they've created to protect themselves. They didn't create any of these laws, statutes, policies, and procedures to protect us. So we got to protect ourselves. We got to defend ourselves. And we got to have it in our minds that when we do so, it's correct and the right thing to do. And stop letting other people, including our own weak people, persuade us into believing that we got to follow some type of guideline and policy. They don't do it, and they're the ones that created it. You got a white woman that died at the age of 88 that should have been locked up, but the men in that community put that paper in the basement and said, I dare you to do something. And if you do something, I got another man in our community that's going to make sure you don't get no justice behind it. We need to begin to start thinking that what's right by us, we don't care what other people say, do, or think, or laws and statutes they try to put on us. We need to do for self, beginning with protecting and defending ourselves. We got to stop allowing these people to get into our business and persuade us that now all of a sudden we have to look towards them to see what's right. They create laws, like I say, and they don't adhere by them. They figure out that there's something done unjustly to their community, and they rectify it by making sure that justice is served. And that's all I'm saying, people. We got to start realizing that there's nothing wrong with making sure that justice is served. What's wrong is that we allow things to continue to happen, and we got people around the world looking at us like we ain't gonna do nothing about it. That has to change. The thought process, the mentality of us has to continuously evolve to a point where we are starting to believe that what we do for ourselves and what we do that is right by us is right across the board. And that's where I don't have any sympathy for the white woman that died. I care less. What I know that I'm sad about is that we didn't get due justice and have her serve time at 88, 87, 86, 83, 82, 81, and serve time like they did to our elderly, Bill Cosby. I don't care what Bill Cosby they say they did. And whatever happened 40 years ago, it happened 40 years ago. But it wasn't beating no white woman to the pulp and putting her in a funeral and seeing her casket with her face all battered. It's just somebody that claimed that he did something to her with a drug or whatever. And whatever it was, it didn't cause for him to be locked up. And that's what I'm saying. It's a double standard. So when are we going to make sure we correct that? When it comes to us, let's stand up and protect and serve our community by any and all means necessary.
Yes, man, it really goes back to what we're talking about, what we're advocating for, and that's, basically control, self-determination, ultimately gaining control over our community. That includes our justice system. We need to create a form of really security, meaning to secure our community and to take care of issues like that. Because as long as we are dependent upon somebody else to give us justice, then we're always coming from a power of servitude, a power of weakness, a power of being under the domination of in control over people that, frankly, we don't trust. We should never trust because they have a history of exploiting us and they continue to exploit us. This is the condition in which we live. And this, the death of this 88-year-old woman, you die at 88 years old and you've lived a full life. Most of us never make it to 88. The average life expectancy for Black men is like what, 65? Black women live a little longer, but this lady basically is responsible for murder. And like Grandmaster Teacher said, Emmett Till is not the only one. There's a lot of Emmett Tills, a whole lot of Emmett Tills that you never heard about, that you never hear about. The names are not even remembered as our brother Emmett Tills is remembered. And they just got away with it, continue to get away with it. And they have the evidence of the crime is this nation, period. This nation exists, this nation stands, this nation is powerful, this nation is wealthy. I'm talking about the United States. Well, they're powerful, they exist, they're wealthy, they're influential because of the crimes that were committed against our ancestors that no one ever paid for. No one ever paid for. So at some point in time, after decades and decades, no, centuries after centuries of us trying to gain justice, trying to beg this power structure, this European power structure, to do right by us. At all of that time, us being in the same position that we are today. And people say, well, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. Look, it's been centuries. It's been centuries. After the Civil War, they created a civil rights bill. They created laws. They passed laws that in theory, based on the laws that they created, should have eliminated this problem, period, if they were sincere about doing it. So it's not even a matter of changing laws, because we passed laws, we've had laws, but it doesn't matter if the very nature of this system is exploitation of a certain group of people, which is us. As long as this system exists as it is, then it's not going to change. It may evolve to a point where it look better to us, where they can justify their behavior in a better way, but it's still going to operate the same way. So if we really want to change this, then we have to change it. We have to make a fundamental change, a real change. We have to change. We have to break that power structure. We can't depend on somebody who's going to do what's right. We have to neutralize a threat. If we have a dog that's going around biting people, we don't say, well, we want to talk to the dog. We want to give the dog some behavior training so he can stop behaving in that way. No, we don't do that. We just say, oh no, we got to put that dog down because it is a threat to us. Well, we've been living under a threat for over 400 years. So we got to put that threat down. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying go out and kill anybody. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we have to empower ourselves. Our goals, our objective, our struggle, our leadership, our brilliance has to go forward in a unified effort to try to empower ourselves and to break that chain of exploitation and dependency on a system that means us no good. That has to be our focus. We here at the Republic of New Afrika ultimately want an independent sovereign nation. That's the grand strategy. That's what we have to be aiming toward. And we have to gain step by step, brick by brick, inch by inch, until we ultimately sever the chains and the stranglehold of this system that has oppressed us so much, you know. And I'm gonna give Grandmaster Teacher the last word on this, and then I want to go back to, you know, what we said we was gonna talk about, because we had a live, but very good discussion about the Black church, and we're gonna get to that in just a second. But Grandmaster Teacher, you know, you got any final word on this particular topic?
I would say, you know, Byron Taylor Beckwith.
Okay.
Who was responsible for the bombing of the 3, you know, girls in Birmingham. Wound up in prison. Wound up, you know, dying in prison and all that. But that's not justice. You know, we had no part in the apprehension of the criminal. You know, so when it comes down to it, we have to be responsible for the apprehension. The Black Liberation Army during that day had the right, you know, idea in terms when the cops killed, you know, Black folks, you know, they had to, you know, resist the cops and kill the cops that killed us. Now, what I'm saying now, the full force of the United States government came down on the Black movement, you know, and put all of us in jail, or eliminated the organization, killed off the leadership of the organizations and all that. So what we understand is that we have to begin to be the ones to carry out our mission. Whatever our mission is has to be carried out by us. And we can never have justice about it. I don't care if a woman had gotten put in jail. It would not still have been justice. You know what I'm saying? Because we are not responsible for the apprehension. They had us talking about nonviolence. Had some of our people, our leadership, talk about nonviolence. You know what I'm saying? And nonviolence, the whole effort of nonviolence kept, you know, multiplying. The deaths of Black folk kept multiplying until we start saying Black power, until we start saying Black liberation, until we start, you know, moving to the level of organized now. We start saying burn, baby, burn in the cities of the North, you know, basically. You know, that is when, you know, that we began to have any measure of getting kind of from our own action, from our own hands. And this is the only way this can be resolved. This will only result of this in terms of when we are able to do it, when we get the power to do those things and not understand, and then begin to understand that enemy, the United States government, is the biggest enemy of all of us. And how can you be a criminal and a justice and administer justice for the people who are being victimized?
Definitely. I want to give a shout out to everybody out there who is listening to the broadcast. We're having some technical difficulties. I can't really see everybody out there. It's not showing up on the same screen, but I turned over and I looked over here on our New African Perspective page, and I see Shabu King. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. He said, "Salud, comrade, feed the land." Said it's 12 different churches in New Chicago, and only one of them give food out sometimes, but nothing else is being done in the community. And I guess you're responding to our topic that we posted today, and that's a good comment and a good segue into, you know, what we want to talk about, because earlier in our radio broadcast, you know, we were talking about the Black church, and so I wanted to continue that discussion, and I wanted to continue it with, you know, with a question. You know, has the Black church betrayed the Black community? Because, you know, as we talked about earlier, once upon a time, the Black church was the mecca for political activity, for organizing. It was a safe haven for Black people. So have the Black church abandoned us? Has the Black church become just another victim of capitalism, where it's just an institution that is exploiting the people, using the pain, the emotion, and the belief and spirituality of the people to just make money? So I'm open that up. I'm going to you, Grandmaster Teacher. You're the person who kind of spirit who opened this up.
So let me say that as a person who has been involved in movements that were in the church.
Operation Push Memphis in 1974 to 1978. And when I participated in, it was in a church called Monumental Baptist Church. And we had people on Saturday morning. We had meetings that we dealt with issues. Oh, at the same time, that was the Coalition of Black Youth, that was operating down in Westwood. And what's the guy, the priest, the councilman, he had a church down in Westwood. And then you had other organizations and stuff, almost all activity that was in the community. And so, but at the same time that we were doing stuff on Saturday morning, the pastor didn't take the movement to the church on Sunday morning. So therefore, so the people who became activists that were working out, most of them were not church members. Okay, and the movement, even in King, when King was in, a church that he was over in Montgomery, he was in the movement, and a lot of things were happening in that movement. But many of the people who were in the church, when they come on Sunday, they preach the same typical, Sunday, pray, sermon. So, even in that day, but in that day, nobody could refuse to close their door. Now, one instance in Memphis, when the Black Panther Party was on a decline, and the Black Panther members went over to one of the churches in Memphis, the preacher pulled a gun. They wanted to try to get the preacher to do a feed the food, program right in Memphis, and the preacher pulled a gun and ran him out of the church. So I'm saying this to say that we have to begin to talk about control, but we know that movement will not start again through the church. It would be on the outside. We would be fishing people. We were trying to get people who are inside, basically to change, to transform that, their church to being one that was going to serve the community, going to be that's going to allow the door to be open again. But at this stage, and we find the mega churches, and when the mega churches come, they pull all the people out of a neighborhood, and they'll move their church. They'll build another church somewhere else, or buy another church somewhere else, and take all the people, that would be active in the community, and put it in that church, wherever, miles away from where the people stay, and the people had to go over there. So now that church is not going to have responsibility for doing anything in the community, because it's going to be only to minister to the minister, and play on words. They're going to minister to the minister, and the minister is going to not minister them. The minister is going to build him a big house, and all the people that's around the minister are going to, they're going to share in whoever the funds and stuff that are coming in. And so, and then you have, churches that are like the CME and the AME, the African Methodist Episcopal, that the bishops control, and force the people to move, to force the people to buy bigger churches and all, to force the church to be in debt, and to the point of where what we have to do is, as I used that example of Jesus, when Jesus went in, Jesus didn't go and say, "Cursed be ye," get up out of the, Jesus said, "Damn you," and he had a whoop with him, and was whooping them money changers, that they called them back then, or whatever, people that were giving, there was money launderers, launderers and all that, and kicked them out. Unless that happens, we're not going to see the church playing that role that it played traditionally, back in the 1800s and 1900s, all the way up to the 20th century. And we're going to have these money grabbers and all that's in there. And then we're going to have people not getting education. They're not teaching. They're only preaching. And when you're only preaching and you're not teaching while you're preaching, you're not going to be able to turn nothing over. You're not going to be able to change nothing. You're not going to be able to influence the people to go in whatever direction they need to go in. So that's why we have to begin to understand that, and we're finding that, you know, that that the what do we call it, the Moses, you know, the new Moses that have come up, you know, after King and all that, you know, the Sharptons and all those people, you know, basically just, you know, grabbing money, you know, in the name of the movement. And then we got to begin to understand. That's why, you know, we don't hear nothing no more from Jesse and all those other people.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I want to give a big shout out to who is that? Umwa Bantoon, #2. It's a salute from Jackson, Florida, and welcome everybody who's watching the Voices of New Africa. We're talking about asking the question: has the church betrayed our community? If y'all out there listening or watching, make sure y'all drop a line. You know, let us know who's out there so we can continue to converse with you and have an open dialogue between all of the Voices of New Africa, not just us. But I mean, with this whole conversation or this question of have the Black church betrayed us, and I think one of the biggest pieces of evidence of that is when you look in the Black community, you can go to the poorest, the most poverty-stricken, the communities that have the most crime. And one thing you notice, even though in some cases it looks like that community has been hit by a bomb, you still have church after church after church after church. You know, within like 5 blocks, you can have like 3 churches. And there's always like a big, gigantic mega church. Sometimes there are multiple mega churches in poor communities. So out of all the institutions that we have in our community, and we stress the need for Black people to create Black institutions that work in our benefit. Well, the Black church is a community, it is an institution. It is an institution that apparently Black people are supporting. So if there are so many churches within the community, why are we not having the change? Why is it not being having that influence within the community like it once had? You know, these are questions that have to be addressed. You know, we have to, you know, like sincerely be like, okay, what are you really doing? You know, like you said, like Grandmaster Teacher said, are you just preaching? Are you just going out giving a religious ideology, a belief system that tells you to focus and worry about a pie in the sky, worry about getting heaven after you die, instead of getting out into the community and working and building our heaven on earth, which would be control of our own communities? So we can begin to address the real problems in our community, because long as our communities are controlled by individuals who benefit from our exploitation, we're not gonna have the ability to address our problems in a real meaningful way. So I'm gonna go to a comment from the audience. Sister Daniel, how you doing? So the church is an institution, isn't for liberation, but the people have formed mass liberation efforts. Radical traditions exist within African church goers. Nat Turner, etc. It's a tool. There's definitely been suppression within religious institutions, especially concerning pork chop preachers and poverty pimps. Definitely. You also said African people are a spiritual people, and that's an interesting comment, and I do definitely agree with that. It is a tool, and you know, African people we are by nature just a spiritual people. Like, you can go throughout our history, you know, spirituality has been a very important part of us, and it still is. That is, you know, evident by how much influence the church still has, how big of a lot it still has. So at some point, we have to have a concrete analysis of our condition. We have to look at things, you know, in a concrete way, in an honest, realistic way. So we have to look at this institution, and we have to ask ourselves, has the things that's been going on in this institution, has it been used against us? Are these things that once upon a time helped us out? Is it now handicapping us? You know, are these institutions just systems of exploitation of our people? Because that's what happens under capitalism. Everything becomes a tool of exploitation. That's what capitalism does. So we have to have concrete analysis of this. You know, so if you are members of the church, then you have to look around and you have a good heart and your heart is in the right place. Then, you know, do an honest assessment. Like, okay, is what we're doing, are we actually making a difference with the community, or are we just gathering, having a good time, hearing someone who has a lot of charisma and say some words that speak to our emotion and get us overly emotional, and then we have this joyous feeling for a couple of hours on Sunday, and then we go back into the regular world and its business, or the regular community and its business as usual. We're not actively doing anything to change, because I mean, I'm just telling you honestly, you know, if you just going to church every day, I mean, whenever you go and you just having a good time, and it's not motivating you to do anything different when you step outside of the church, then I think, you know, we having a disservice. You ain't doing nothing. The church is serving just like the club or anything else, somewhere we can go and relieve our stress, just like going to the basketball game. You go to the game and you cheer and you relieve a lot of stress, and then you go back to your regular life. So has that what church has become, a place where we can go and relieve stress, sing, dance, praise, shout, fall out in some cases, and then go back out of the community and not make a single effort, not lift a finger to change the condition of our community. Um, so I'm gonna yield right there, because I know I've been talking a lot. And I'm gonna open it up to anybody else who want to comment. Nobody else want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the churches. We're going to have to go back and utilize that and not be divided as a people based on the religions that we choose. That should always be secondary to the commonality of us being one people, one race. And if we can grow in terms of that, it won't be detrimental as much as it is now dividing us. Religion is just one thing that people choose to do. Faith in your particular religion is just something you choose to do. But being a new African, that just comes automatically with nature. You can tell that you're a new African just based on looking at your skin. You can tell basically people who are impressed in this country based on the circumstances in which we are in this day and age. So I don't want to say anything that would hamper us from being able to galvanize by any way we can. Church could be one of those possibilities if we can take back control. We just have to notice that this has never been something that we shied away from. The church has always been a place where we could gather together, have our meetings, have our town hall meetings, conferences, strategize, do a lot of things, and we just need to try in some form or fashion try to get back to that.
I mean,
The religions that we now have been imposed upon us. And we have to take control of the ideology, because the ideology that is, has us tangled up and divided are the ideology of the enemy. And the images and all those things have to be changed. At one point in time, we saw transformation in some of those places, changing rechanging the image of Jesus to the so-called original image and all those things that was supposedly existed during that period of time. So what we have to do is, it has become a people's institution. And the people, because the church itself is just, the church what place we call the church is just a building. The church itself are the people. And if we can adhere to the point of that in all religion, in every last one of them, not just Christianity, that the people are, are the motive force, behind the so-called spiritual urgings and things that the human beings have, then and take it away from the classes that have taken over. And we've got to understand that these are class systems that have taken over, and they're guiding our people in the wrong direction. They're stopping, and at one point in time, we were able to use sometimes, original politicians in the system that we are under, were preachers. The black preachers were, first politicians and all those kind of things. The first undertakers, the first whatever. So we're not going to go back to that. But what we're going to do is we're going to make all institutions in our community to adhere to the liberation movement, the liberation struggle, the governance of the Republic of New Afrika, or whatever nation that we call ourselves in the Western Hemisphere, that we're not going to have the domination of those so-called spiritual forces that are going to lead us astray from our material realities, which is that we have to have our own land back, and we got to organize ourselves so that, and under that, and we're going to govern ourselves. And any institutions that are going to, be a part of that are going to have to be a part of that governing factor. In other words, where they cannot come out again and lead our people astray and exploit our people. So we're going to make those places become less bases of exploitation and more bases for freedom for our people. And so therefore, I'm saying so that whatever they want to worship or not worship, it won't be under the control of a few individuals who are part of a class of people who just want to get rich.
I guess a comment.
Yeah, I'm about to go to that now. You want to read them?
Yeah, starting off with Brother Alexander. For the most part, black churches have been dismantled of its liberating potential. And he commented on how Grandmaster Teacher recognized that they have been hijacked. So we can get back to that.
Well, I want to just add a little bit on that. First of all, Brother Patrick Alexander, I want to good to see you, comrade. That's a strong brother out of Mississippi, the Black Liberation Movement, Mississippi branch. Always good to hear from this brother. Big freedom land, black power to you. But yeah, definitely the black church has definitely been hijacked and stripped of its liberation potential, because like we said, once upon a time, the black church was kind of the center of movement, the center for change within the community, and now it's just seemed like a center of exploitation, black exploitation. And we have to be sincere, and we have to be honest about that. I know Adonia said, African people are a spiritual people, and that being that we love God so much. We love God, and we love Jesus, and we love whatever it is, whatever our spiritual belief that we have, that we identify with. And understand, black people are not a monolith. We believe in different things, and I think it's important to have somewhat of respect for the differences, because religion has been used as a tool of division. And that's my biggest complaint about religion in general. I've always said I don't really care what you believe in. I care about what you do with what you believe in. And if your religion uh handicaps caps or prevent you from joining with other people to do what is necessary for the liberation of our people, then I say screw your religion. That's the only time. That's the main time that I have problems with any religion. But if you are a Christian or Muslim or Hebrew Israelite, Rastafarian, whatever, don't matter, as long as we can understand that whatever it is that we believe, utilize that to make you personally strong and have the courage and conviction to do what's necessary. But once you do that, then we have to put that religion, that belief system right there to the side, or just keep it in your heart. And then we have to be able to join collectively with whoever, regardless of what they believe in. If they believe in something that you just completely against, it don't matter, as long as we are both focused on the liberation of our people. We ought to get to that point. So, but yeah, thank you for your comment, brother Patrick, and we're agreeing 1,000% with you. And I know I was on a broadcast with Baba Amin, which is the founder of the Uhuru Academy. He doing some great things down in South Carolina, really all over. He kind of nationwide with independent schools. But he said, advice to people who really want to go get out and do work is you have to do the necessary, a honest resource assessment to say, what resources do you have? What can you actually provide for the people? You have to actually do that. And the second thing that you have to do is you have to do connect. You have to connect with the people and build relationships. And sometimes he made a challenge of us in the liberation of New African independence movement, of those of us who are part of this liberation struggle, to say, when we come to the community, we have to come humble and not looking down on the people. Because sometimes some of us can have this superiority complex of whereas, oh, I got this knowledge and you ignorant, you don't have, you still indoctrinated, you still following, all of these type of things. And that shows it, and it reflects in our behavior, and we kind of look down upon people when we come in a condescending way. And when you try to connect with people, they only connect so far. Be like, okay, I ain't gonna deal with you looking down on me, and it falls apart. So at some point in time, we need to humble ourselves, and we might need to look at the church and say, hey, okay, Pastor, Reverend, we got this community that builds that works with the youth. We have community that educates us on survival. We have these programs that provide the resources that's needed for the people to grow collectively. But we need a place to have this community. I see you have this big community center. We need a place to have this program. I see you got this community center. What does it take for us to work together to do that? Sometimes we need to come in a humble way, because I guess it's two sides to every equation. But whatever the case may be, if we're serious about our liberation, it can't continue as it's going. We can't continue to have all these big mega churches that's getting money from the people. It's making millions and millions, billions of dollars every year from the people, and all they want to do is live large and have a big, gigantic church. We don't have enough institutions that we control, but there is a black church, and black people are supporting the black church. So we can continue with the comments, because we got a lot of them going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the next comment is Ayana Simon.
There you go, right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Adanya says, anytime organized institutions exist, such as religions, there's definitely systematic anti-blackness that exists within it. Organized religion is a lullaby to the masses. Mega, aka venture capitalist churches are able to organize, lobby through the government while leaving out the lumping. We never abandon the people. We should never abandon the people, their beliefs, and of the. We should never abandon the people, the beliefs of the proletariat. It's historically been a tool for grassroots struggle. Man, she's so true. That fact that it has been a tool for grassroots struggle, it means that if, to me, we can get a lot done with that pre-existing organization throughout the church, but we have to recognize that those people that are organized for those reasons have to be taught about the class struggle, about the ideology and philosophy why we have them gathered. And that's a great way to hit access to people through a grassroots type of way. You know what I mean? Everything has to be done through the people. This is an excellent way to get to them. I agree. You don't attack their religion. That's just a personal choice that they decide. But what you can do is elevate their minds into thinking about an ideology and philosophy that deals with the liberation of our people and the struggle that we have to go through to obtain that liberation. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
You want to add anything there, Grandmaster?
Yes.
I think that's what we have to do. We have to begin to find the elements, the positive elements that are in whatever institution that we're going to want to penetrate, and get that core people, who are willing to overthrow the leadership, misleadership that is included in those places. But I want to say that, like that we can't just wait for that. We have to plant the seeds for it to happen, in a future time. But at the same token, we have to recognize that sometimes institutions are corrupt and they cannot be saved. And so in other words, when we talk about going to institutions that we know that we can go in and we can have an influence, there. But then there are some institutions that, like you said, that mega capitalist church, you're not going to be able. We're going to have to topple those places because they are pulling a lot of the people that who will be faithful followers in terms of the organizations or whatever into those places. And the churches are, and some churches are, what you say, you see a lot of churches, some churches are empty. Some churches are, have because the people have left the community to go to those mega capitalist churches. And so therefore, so sometimes when we see 3 or 4 churches, we're going to find that they're all competing for the same little pennies and stuff. They're not, in other words, so, but in terms of trying to build them up or whatever we try to, that might be an opening for us to be able to go in and have activities in those places, because those people have been, they have been vacated, by those elements that are going to follow the so-called Messiah people, big mega churches. So I think it's important that when we talk about doing that, we got to see what is in our community, and how are we able to use those those places that are having and get with the people who have been left behind in the community.
On and yeah, these are some great comments. Adana also says in the Quran, we fight injustices, and if we cannot, we hate those injustices. But everything goes back to the class struggle. This isn't a call to go against faith, only Western settlers' religion that have been co-opted, and that's true. It's not our fight to go against the religion. What was you saying, Grandmaster Teacher?
That includes churches that have, lured our people in to be divided, on the basis of saying that they're following Saudi Arabia, for example, and the influence Saudi Arabia has on places like Sudan, Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about remaining focused on the goal at hand. Patrick Alexander, keep teaching hard, comrade. That's right. That's right. And this sister, I like a lot that she's saying. My mother's Haitian. We grew up open to choice, our own path. We grew up open to choose our own paths in terms of religion, spirituality, spiritual practices. But she always instilled in us a sense of cultural pride and taught, as Malcolm said, if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything. But in terms of uniting the people, religion may have to stay in the closet until we get free. And I heard that same statement from a Queen Mother of Haiti, Biana Bayo. She said that one of the main reasons why the Haitians were successful in their independence was because when they got together in the swamps that night, that first night, with Bookman and the rest, and it was a queen mother there. They decided that everybody's going to have to put their religion on the shelf because we need to focus on the common enemy. And that's absolutely right. In terms of our struggle here in the United States, because it's more detrimental for us as a people to not obtain control right here in this hemisphere. They already have focused a lot of their energy on making sure that there isn't a free republic here in the Western Hemisphere by their actions that they've shown us through Haiti. But Haiti still exists, but it has a lot of obstacles to be truly independent. And so we got to focus on that, and we got to make sure that we keep that religion on the shelf so that we can remain focused on the real goal at hand, and that's liberation. You're absolutely right. I didn't know she was Haitian, but that's great.
Me neither. Actually, I see a comment that just came in from on our New African Perspective page. I don't know why the comments on this particular page is not showing up with the rest of them, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge. This is from Shabu King. How you doing, brother Shabu? That's a strong brother right here from Ida B. Wells, and we got to basically connect and get together and work. Because this is really strong with a revolutionary heart, a strong brother with a revolutionary heart. He says the black church wait on Jesus to come save us. And I mean, actually, that's a really good point, because we had to get out of this Messiah complex, but we waiting on somebody to come save us, period. Regardless if it's Jesus to come back or whoever it is to come back. That's extremely detrimental, because you talked about this earlier. We don't really need any more messiahs, and that's something that's been we've been kind of detrimental, because you can kill a messiah, easy to kill a messiah. We always and some of us are just looking for a messiah, trying to hype up. Well, it's Farrakhan, is this person, is that person? This is the Nah, we have to have all of us have to be the messiah. All of us have to collectively take the responsibility of liberating our people. Because leaders, basically what the figureheads do is they energize the people, they move the people in a certain direction. That's the value in the leaders, in the leaders, and the people who we like to call messiahs. They're able to focus the energy of the people in one direction. But the actual liberation, the actual work is done by the people. The people are the key. The people have always been the key, and the people will always be the key. So we have to take, that responsibility in our own hands and stop waiting on somebody else to come down to try to save us. If you want to look at for the Messiah, you want to find the Messiah. I don't care if you believe in Jesus, Muhammad, Master Farad, whoever. Malachi, I don't care who it is. If you want to find the real Messiah, go to the mirror and look in the mirror, because you got to be responsible for saving yourself. I see Brother Bo Money checking in, and I do not know why all these comments are not showing up with everybody else, but I definitely want to acknowledge y'all. Another strong brother in the New African independence movement, the Minister of Information, down in Columbus, Georgia. And he said the Black Shrine of Madonna, Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, is still serving the community and New African nation. And yeah, I mean, definitely, especially when you go into the history of this stuff and understand the African origins of religion in general, it's ridiculous for us to be arguing over these things, because all of this stuff come back to Africa. In Europe, the image of the Black Madonna and Child, that's one of the most sacred images in all of Europe. The popes worship it. This whole
He's talking about a particular church that came out of Detroit.
Okay.
The Black Shrine of Black Madonna, the Pan-African Church, came out of right, yeah. There you go. Yeah, the Shrine of the Black Madonna Pan-African Church comes out of Detroit. And Reverend Clay, who was a friend of Malcolm X, who basically Malcolm spoke many times at his church. So when we deal with that, what I'm saying is there are some elements of leadership that is coming from that where we should be coming from in terms of what direction. And so we can't just throw our hands out and say we just gonna have religion gonna be in the closet, because there are some elements that that we can support, and that's supporting the movement that'll bring us into because there's a right path and there's a wrong path, and the right path is to go back to the tradition, where we formerly were involved, through the church. And the wrong path is trying to transform these capitalist ventures that call themselves churches, the mega churches and all that, you know what I'm saying? So therefore, and the mega churches lead to the danger of the Messiah, a person who's going to mislead. Most times we find Messiah not leading the people, but misleading the people in a direction, because they're not capable of listening to what their congregation is saying, or what some people that might have a correct direction is saying, and they'll run them out. And then, so that's what I was saying in terms of when we go back, you go back to where they came from, where they left all the people in the neighborhood, and go back to that neighborhood, and then we'll take over those structures that they left. And we'll be able to organize our people, on a spiritual and material basis,
And I just want to be clear, because I think what I was talking about and what the young lady was talking about in the closet it was that whatever's going on about religion and church and all the discussions about Jesus and all of that, we ain't gonna worry about that right now. That's what we mean by put it in the closet or on the shelf. That's some stuff that later on, after we accomplish the main goal, we can go back to later on, and you can be whatever, and you can do all that or whatever after
I have a question on that.
On our main goal.
So when people, so when the church itself
become the enemy and don't allow you to put the church in the closet. What I'm saying is that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about individuals.
No, that's what. No,
what you're talking about. As individuals.
You're talking about that.
Okay, I'm talking about. I'm calm. Okay, excuse me.
Don't tell me that.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, I agree.
Put religion in the closet. But what I'm saying
too is we cannot deny, when we see when we see the enemy. Well, I'm just saying that is the only time that we will fight, is that when we're seeing them trying to disrupt our movement. That's the only time we'll fight that. But otherwise, I agree with what you're saying. We must, as individuals, we must put religion in the closet, and that way we can come together as individuals. I agree with that.
And I agree with that. But you didn't deliver the message like that. It was like in the closet, we can't do that. But no, anytime we have a goal and we set a goal, we gonna recognize who our common enemy is, and that common enemy will reveal itself by being against what we're trying to accomplish. If that happens to get to a point where religion is starting to be that, obviously we already grouped that with the enemy side. It ain't about religion. We done put that to the side. It's about you coming to us when we have been clear and concise about what our goals and objectives are. And now you're trying to bring something against our goal and objectives. Yeah, we gotta handle that right then and there. But anybody that's on the team and we are sitting up here trying to strategize and figure out how we're going to attack and how we're going to plan, put in a plan of action, and you start talking about religion, no, you got to put that on the shelf. You either with us or you not, and that's when you attack that. But I understand we gonna all be on point when it comes to getting our goal accomplished, and we all know that we can't let anything deter us from that. We must introduce politics through, and let me continue on with another one of the sisters' comments. We must introduce politics through these pre-existing organizations, and we meet them where they are. That can be through street organizations and or the church or the mosque or whatever, masjid, etc. And that's right. We gotta try to get the word out to the people by any and all means necessary. We can't exclude anyone. When it becomes a point of that something is creating division, we got to bring on the people who understand and go from there. Well, we got to continue to build. We have to continue to build by any and all means necessary. You're absolutely right, sister.
I think, and with her point, I think it's really important that part of our strategy is those of us in the liberation movement is to have strategically target these organizations. I'm in agreement with the sister 1,000%. That's something that we've done in the past, target street organizations, go after the leadership of the street organizations to try to convert their mind to more of a liberation mindset. And we've had success doing that. We've created some very powerful soldiers by doing that who have great influence. So maybe this strategy should also be employed to the religious leaders that we can get to. Now we understand that there are some people who not going to want to change. We understand that's a part of the process, but I think it is definitely worth it to strategically go after these religious institutions because they have so much influence within our community. I mean, so many people are just so locked into whatever their belief system is that it would just be a disservice for us to just sit and look and be like, screw the church, screw them, you know what I'm saying? Because we're so dissatisfied with the way things are. But we identify problems, not to just talk about the problem, not to complain about the problem, but to actually do something about them. So I'm in agreement with you, with your sister. I think that is a worthy strategy to employ. go after these institutions and convert them, influence them. They don't necessarily have to. Become to the point where they're carrying AK-47s and AR-15s in front of the church, ready to go to war. But we can influence them where they would not only having a lesson, educational program that is conducive to liberation, to independence, that they are more open to teaching, the people, because every step, every inch helps, because a lot of times we look at people, and if they're not as revolutionary as we are, then we want to cut them down. And I think that's kind of a problem. That's something that we have to adjust, because things develop from the simple to the complex. You know, right now, the discussion about reparation is getting more mainstream. Well, not too long ago, you couldn't even talk about reparation. Was a bad word. You said reparations, and they just shut that down, immediately. But ideas are changing. People's thoughts are changing, because we steadily kept pounding, and gradually people started to change about the idea and their thinking of it. And that's kind of how we have to do it. We have to always keep in mind that this is a protracted struggle. It's not about changing everything overnight. It's about being strategic and planting seeds, watering them, and seeing where they grow. And I'm gonna yield on that.
And the next comment, that was a comment to you, Brother Prophecy. Yeah, uh, strategically get it done. And we've been involved with the struggle for many years, and a lot of the things that we do uh, ain't for the mainstream. You have to evolve to that level of consciousness and understanding to be able to actually accept the things that need to be done at a certain level. And we understand that. But for the mainstream, we have to continue to be strategic and allow people to be attracted to the cause by the ideology and philosophy. But the sister, she's going, yeah, I like that. I think there's some churches that have ulterior motivation through fascist government that do put us in a political coma. Like Cointepro told us, any revolution is a dead revolution. And it only serves white society to see us dribbling the basketball instead of organizing a protracted struggle. Um, you're right. You're right. We have to realize it's a protracted struggle, and we can't be swayed uh, by these people. It looked like Grandmaster Teacher, you had something to say about that.
Okay, I want to say that in all revolution, and we are in the process of revolution, must begin to isolate whoever, like you said, whoever are the enemies of of the people, so that'll be because if we and you look at see what's happening with China, and with when Mao finally was able to come into power, and Chiang Kai-shek, was forced to go to Formosa, which is now called Taiwan. You'll find that the reactionary Christian element and the religious, I ain't gonna say Christian, the religious elements all moved out off the island, and the progressive religious elements remain. A part of the Red Army and the Red Movement. That whole thing. So that's what we have to do. We have to isolate those elements that are against the people, and be able to educate and treat the people to the extent of knowing who these people are and these elements are. And these elements are going to come out and ride, like you said, the enemy. They're going to be part of the enemy. And so that's where we really talk about, pulling all those other positive elements together, not having no discussions and things around religion, and take that out of the equation. And that way we will be able to fulfill the revolution, because we're going to be the positive element. We're not going to be the negative element.
That's right. And okay, it's been the FBI interference that's encapsulated our organization efforts. You are absolutely 100 on that.
We can have a whole discussion on that.
Yeah, we can have a whole discussion on that. Um, many people are starting to understand that what was said about the FBI, the government, doing the things that they've done to us, assassinated all of our leaders, had a plan of action called COINTELPRO that most people say. It's been a problem, and it's obvious that we recognize our enemy and the things that they are capable of doing. She also says redirecting your political education, and that's true because in our process, we found that political education was one of the pivotal points on the main areas that we had to develop in our institution. A lot of people are not politically educated enough to understand where we've been, where we are, and where we need to go. And that is very, very important. What do we have on the other page? Because that's it for these. And it's about 10:15, 2:15, and
Yeah, I know you were saying that we need to get off around 2 o'clock. So I was like trying to go and get through these comments so far, so we can go and wrap it up because we've had a very 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 good discussion conversation about the church, man. One is needed, and I think we came up with some good strategies, some things that we can implement to aid us in our struggle for liberation, independence, self-determination. So yeah, I'm happy. Like I said, our audience is one of the most politically aware, one of the country's most educated audience in the land, and it blows my mind just to read the comments. A lot of times I go back and I look at the show and I just read the comments. So we appreciate everybody. If you're still out there, man, hit us up with a like, man. Give us a like, show us some support, give us some love, But we're about to get ready to get out of here. You got anything else you want to say before we get out of here, Grandmaster Teacher?
Yes.
Yes, we are going to have a great audience, and this is part of the political education process. And once we understand that we are all a part of this political education process, we just need to forward to other people, and we need to pull others in. And I think it's important, but what we're doing here is very important because it's going to firm us up. And we do need to be firmed up. We need and supported, by our comrades around, so that we'll be able to know if we are moving in the correct direction. I think this shows that we are moving in a correct direction to organizing our people and coming up with the action that will be required to pull our people together.
yeah, I just like to.
Let me turn mine off.
Let me turn yours off. Hold on. Put mine on. And then I just want to go to something that is very important. As we move forward to independence, we have to realize that our people have gone through this before. And it's something I just want to quote from the code of emojis. It's very quick. It says, "We, the Black people in America, in consequence of arriving at a knowledge of ourselves as a people with dignity, long deprived of that knowledge, as a consequence of revolting with every decimal of our collective and individual being against the oppression that over 300 plus years has destroyed and broken and warped our bodies and minds and spirits of our people in America in consequence of our raging desire to be free of this oppression, to destroy this oppression wherever it assaults mankind in the world, and in consequence of our indistinguishable determination to go a different way to build a new and better world, do hereby declare ourselves forever free and independent of a jurisdiction of the United States of America and the obligation which that country unilaterally decisions to make our ancestors and our people paper citizenship placed on us, we the people. So that's just a part of our Declaration of Independence that we must understand. This is what we are striving for, an independent sovereign nation, and by no means are we the first, by no means will we be the last, but we will win. And we as a people have to understand that. And that's all I have to say.
Right. I see another comment by Danya. She says, please read my other comment. It piggybacks on what you said, what you laid out, Brother Prophecy. And I'm trying to figure out which comment is that, because I think we read all of them. I know we've been hitting your comments up a lot. I don't think we skipped any.
Yeah, it looks like she got one. Say, it's been an FBI interference that encapsulate the organization. No, we read it.
Yeah, I think we read all your comments, Danya. And if we missed any, I do apologize, because your comments are so on point, and we appreciate you. And I hope you're part of some kind of formation or organization, because we need minds like yours, in leadership who are strategizing. This one. She said this one.
Do the time. Do the time. If she could do the time.
You see that? I don't see that.
No, I'm saying if she can do the time.
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, we're gonna have to get up out of here. So if we missed one, I do apologize.
We apologize.
Yeah, I do apologize on that. But you've been listening and watching the New African Voices of New Afrika. Join us on all of our shows. I think people should be getting back in town and recuperated from Nation Day, and our regular scheduled programs are going to start back up really soon. We didn't have the program conversation between Comrade, because our comrade Atiba kind of had an issue going on, and we'll talk about that later on, and hopefully we can resolve that, and it will be back on as usual. But join us every week right here Sunday from 12:30 until we get up off of here at the Voices of New Afrika. For Brother Prophecy, well, I should say for Grandmaster Teacher, for Dolly, our comrade Kai, I am Brother Prophecy. See y'all again next week. We love y'all. Thank you for your comments, for your conversation. Continue these conversations with your family, with the people, with community leaders. Implement these strategies with the churches, with the street organizations, and whoever out there that needs to be converted, get that political education, because everything counts. Everything is important. We're trying to move the needle as much as we can to our ultimate goal of liberation, and so we can leave that blueprint to our children, and they can pick up the struggle, and it can continue on and on.
Love you too, Queen. All the brothers.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see y'all again next week. We leave y'all with our battle cry, and that is Free the land, free the land, free the land.
We always say in the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika.